Hey guys, welcome back to 2.0. I am so happy you can join us for another episode. That's right, 2.0 is in the house, all right? You are back for this wonderful series that we're doing called Custody Conflict Judged, but is it just? Well, listen, we had part one, we had part two. If you did not have the opportunity to watch part one and two, I would encourage you to go back and watch one and two and then come back for the third and final episode of this series. I'm telling you, and those of you who's been watching, you can tell how fascinating this story is. You can tell the craziness of this story. Feel free to share it with someone, somebody who may find it helpful, or somebody who's going through a similar situation. So we encourage you to share it with them. We appreciate the love and support that you are giving to this platform, and we want to extend the opportunity to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you have not had the opportunity to subscribe yet, go ahead and subscribe and become part of the 2.0 family and be part of the conversations that we are having here. Listen, let's make it an interactive platform. So leave us some comment, ask us some questions, and we'll be more than happy to provide some answers, and just get back to you on your comments. So without further ado, let's go to episode 3, the final episode of the series. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. That was a good point, because you said, because the good parent is always the one who suffers, right? Because even though she's manipulating the kids and she's using the kids against you, but when you have the kids and you're taking care of them, you're always very cautious on what you do and how you behave, because you don't want to fall into the same thing.
Right.
Like
So
you're saying stuff about her, your mother's this, your mother's
right.
that. Yeah.
The courts, the way that things went in court,
Yeah.
I was conditioned to believe that if I dropped the ball and I made some disparaging comments,
Right.
I can be held in contempt. I could lose the custody that I do, that I have, and
Right.
or lose, have them less time. Who knows?
Yeah.
I was conditioned to. I was conditioned to believe the court had me by.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The court enabled
Yeah.
her
Unfortunately.
behavior, where I didn't have the same courtesy. She said what she wanted. Your father, loves, her his new family more than you. Your father doesn't,
Wow.
Doesn't want to do this for you.
Yeah.
And it contributed to. I mean, I feel like it gave the kids the impression that the mom was always right. Right? If dad doesn't defend himself,
Yeah.
right? Because even when you're defending yourself,
Yeah.
it's very hard to do so without crapping on the other person.
Of course.
So if dad doesn't defend himself when mom says this, and that, it must be true. So I had, it was a very frustrating time,
Yeah.
and so the other thing that I feel like I blame the court is, again, enabling the other person, the other parent, is the way the courts always ruled in her favor, even when I had the evidence, even when I literally would come home and I would tell, my friends and family what happened, and
Yeah.
they're like, they want to bang their head on against the table, because it's like, what? I can't believe that happened,
I know.
So with these outcomes from the court, that gives the kids the impression that mom is always right, right? Because whatever mom is going to court seeking, she gets.
Yeah.
When dad goes, it gets denied.
Right. And it's unfortunate, because the court is 100% biased. They always rule in the favor of the woman, regardless. And especially, it's hurtful when you find yourself dealing with a good dad, someone who wants to be present in the kid's life, someone who wants to do the right thing, someone who wants to do right by the kids, and that's why they're there, right? That's why the courthouse. The father who's considered deadbeat, they're nowhere to be found. They're not showing up at court. They're not showing up. So the fact that the man is showing up at court, that should speak volume to the fact that this man is trying to take responsibility for his kids. Where they're not trying to avoid, paying child support or avoid taking responsibility to spend time with their kids. They actually want to, but they want it to be fair. But unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing.
Right. Right. So I mean, going back to your question, um, my 17-year-old, there was an incident maybe 2 years ago
Mm-hmm.
where the mother, pretty much, she posted something on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother saw it before I did. So the mother called me. She's, David, you have to do something. Get her to bring it down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw it, I immediately snapped too, because I did not approve of that post either.
Gotcha.
Right. So I immediately jumped into dad mode and like, take that crap down, that was inappropriate, whatever. And and she wasn't in my care. She wasn't in my visitation. She was with the mother when that happened.
Okay.
So the following weekend, I picked her up, and she was giving me the silent treatment.
Oh wow.
Like, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I should be the one that's upset. And I'm asking her questions. So let me ask you, what did your mom say about that post?
Mm-hmm.
She said nothing. She said that I was overreacting.
But she called you and told you need to do
Yes.
something about it. But now she's
Yes.
telling her
Yes.
you
I'm
overreacting.
overreacting. So at this point, the kids are older, and I'm like, I'm done
Mm-hmm.
not defending myself.
Right.
I said, you know what? I'm here, and I gave her my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't a phone call, it was through text.
Okay.
I don't receive phone. I don't answer the phone.
Gotcha.
Everything's got to be written.
Written. Yeah. So you're,
If
so
you're
you go
called,
back to it, yeah.
I said, read these texts.
Mm-hmm.
And she read them. She was, for some reason, blown away. She felt like crap because she was manipulated to believe
Yeah.
that I was the bad guy
Right. Right. Right.
when I was, set up here. Like, I still believe that what you posted was wrong, and
Right. Of course. Yeah.
and so did your mother.
Mm-hmm.
But she took advantage that I went in on you,
Yeah.
but then she could still maintain being your friend, I guess.
So what's the term they use? She gaslighted you, right?
Yeah.
Gaslight.
She gaslighted both of us. So I think that was the turning point
Yeah.
for, this is my youngest child. The other two, those are different stories. But
Okay.
this one, she started questioning
Mm-hmm.
everything that the mom was doing, questioning her
Got it.
behavior,
Right.
and then, of course, without trying to disparage the other parent,
Mm-hmm.
I did shine some light on the big issue here is narcissism, personality disorder,
Okay.
narcissistic personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It's textbook. I mean, if you find, by the way, I'm not in no way professional or
Right,
licensed to
Yeah.
diagnose anybody,
Anyway,
but
yeah.
you can pick up one of your, like, I think one of our kids, or both of our, two of our kids took psychology in college and this and that. So, you can literally read a textbook on narcissistic personality disorder,
Yeah.
and it's like clockwork. It's like you can pinpoint what type you can see them once you get familiar
Mm-hmm.
with. I mean, of course, there's narcissistic behavior that is taught.
Yeah.
Again, I think everybody has a little bit of narcissism in them, myself included. But a lot of this is, culture, it's things that we learn from our parents, passed down, going back. But then there's personality disorder,
Yeah.
where you can't help yourself, but you can't help yourself, right? You're part of your DNA.
Right. Right.
And so it's important to, if you're dealing with somebody in your life, whether it's your loved one, your husband, your wife, even your mother,
Yeah.
right? A lot of us deal with narcissistic parents.
Right.
You learn to identify these traits, and I think it's a good place to begin changing your life,
Right.
right? I think I had a conversation recently about Spanish culture. It's where blood is thicker than water, and it's,
Right.
you are obligated, you're conditioned to always be close to your blood relatives, your brother, your mother, even if they are abusive,
Right.
and
There's
I
blood
think,
over everything.
right, and that's not cool. That's,
Gotcha.
so, you know, I myself have, I still love my mother, but I distance myself.
Yeah.
I see her occasionally or
Right.
regularly, but I have boundaries. You put boundaries up. It's important to put boundaries.
Yeah.
And so the intention is teaching or making aware of these traits. Again, it wasn't so that they can hate their mother. It's
Right.
more
Right.
like
Right.
protect
Yeah.
yourself.
It's more for awareness. That's
Right,
basically
right.
what it is. Yeah.
So of course, eventually she got fed up,
Hmm.
and she says, "Dad, I can't do it no more. I'm moving in."
Oh wow. So she's moving in with you.
She moved in January of 24,
Okay.
right? First week, I think the 5th of January.
Hmm.
I saw her get out. She's been telling me like, I want to move in, I want to move
Right.
in. I was like, I can't tell you what to do,
Yeah.
right? It wouldn't look good. So one day she texted me. It was like 6 in the morning. Like, my friend. Actually, no, I'll take that back. The mother called me. I guess she's in a shouting match with my daughter, and she wanted me to fix this for her.
Okay.
I was like, you created this problem, you
You
deal
deal
with
with
it,
it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And a little bit later, sure enough, I see her best friend at the time.
Hmm.
She had a car. She dropped
Drove
her
it.
off, and I was like, did she really do it? Actually, I see her grabbing these duffel bags out of the
No
car. I was like,
way.
she
Oh man.
freaking did it.
Yeah.
All right, So of course, that was followed by police knocking on the door. The police couldn't do anything, right? Because they asked her questions like, I
Yeah.
don't want to go back.
Wait. She called the police on you?
Yeah, yeah,
The
because she was a minor,
Oh, okay.
right? And there is a court order
Right.
visitation, right?
Yeah.
So, and because she wasn't in her house
Right.
when she was supposed to,
Yeah.
she called the police. The police came over and they interviewed both of us, and I was like, I'm not going to force her back home.
Yeah.
She's expressing to me that she's going through this, and that, and she doesn't want to go back.
Got it.
They asked her, and she pretty much lined up with what I was saying.
Good.
And she went back outside, or the officer went back outside to inform the mother that they can't do nothing.
Nice. Nice.
This would have to be handled in court.
Yeah. Now, did they do a police report that you can actually take to court and say, hey, this is what happens?
It's so weird. Yes, to answer the question, I did.
Hmm.
I was able to go into the court. I mean, to the police station, get a police report.
Right.
Now, of course, they crossed off everywhere they had her name because she's a minor.
Right.
But I got a police report.
Of course.
I got a lawyer to help me get custody. And she said, hey, can you get a certified police? What's the difference? Like, I don't know, but that would be, that would be nice if we have that in court. I go
Okay.
back to the police station to get a certified police report.
Yeah.
The same person that gave me the police report
Yeah.
originally
Right.
is saying, I can't give you a police report. Like, why?
Nice.
Because it's involving a minor. It's my child.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, I can't. I said, listen,
Did you show her a copy?
I didn't show her. I didn't want her to give me that. I said, I came here about 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I was able to get a police report.
Yeah.
I don't know who that was, but they weren't supposed to.
It's the same person
was
that gave
you.
it to you. Wow.
Anyways, it's just, I only say that just
Yeah.
to mention every time.
Like the hoops that you have to go
Yeah.
through, man. And then to think you've been doing this for 17 years. Now I could definitely understand the frustration and the rant that you went on Facebook, because it's like, I'm just saying, like, people are lucky. It's you just rented on Facebook, right? And
Yeah,
you didn't
yeah, yeah.
you didn't escalate to anything else.
Oh,
God
and
forbid.
but
you
that's
know?
the thing, and we talked about that before. Is looking back, and it's frustrating talking among friends, right?
Yeah.
A very close friend of ours really know what's been going on in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. Again, I don't go on Facebook ranting about this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's sad because it's like you can see in their eyes, like they don't know what to say.
Right.
They don't know how to comfort me. They don't know, it's just a really crappy situation. You know, I don't know how the next person would be able to handle the amount of challenges, hurdles, abuse, trauma, in all, right? Because I mentioned a list of things that I've experienced on that rant, but there was, my file is like 300, there's 300, almost 300 filings
Wow.
in court
Over 17 years.
over 17 years. And each of those filings was always very traumatic
Wow.
for everyone involved, you know, even secondhand, right? My stepkids, my wife, my parents. My mother, you sit down. I think if my mother spoke English, I would literally, you should invite her in this podcast. 'Cause she swears she suffers PTSD
PTSD. Yeah.
from all of this
Oh
experience,
my
you know?
God. Yeah.
But again, like you mentioned, there's fathers out there committing suicide because they don't know what else
What
to
to
do.
do? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and they're forced to live in the streets because they can't, they just keep approving more, you know,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
crazy.
And if you think about it, every time you go to court, there's a fee. There's a fee
Yeah.
for the form.
She
there's
gets
a,
to file for a waiver. File for a
she gets to
waiver.
file for a waiver.
She
but
gets to
you-
file.
Yeah, she gets to file for a waiver, but yet you have to pay for the fee. You have to pay child support. You're paying back child support, and you still have to feed the kids when they're with you. It's just crazy.
Right. And then I mean, no, I'll finish with this story. Here is what led up to that rant. She's been in my care over a year.
Okay.
I paid child support for 6 months, right? Because it's automatically out of my payroll.
Yeah.
So since January to July,
Right.
I'm paying child support. It's almost $8,000,
Wow.
$7,000.
Wow.
So
Even though she's with you,
even though she's with
you're
me,
still paying child
I'm
support.
paying child support. And of course, I can't call. The way this is set up too is I can't just call child support enforcement because it went through divorce court,
Gotcha.
and it's like it's handled completely
It's
differently,
different.
right? Right, like with child support enforcement, I think when they turn 18, it can be set up so that it automatically stops.
Okay.
Because I went through divorce court. If you don't file a motion when you're supposed to, you're just continuing paying child support.
Wow.
Right. So I continued paying child support, and I did file a motion for custody. There was a couple of times the other party filed a motion for continuing, so it got dragged down.
Yeah.
So finally we got heard in July.
Wow.
But because of some technicality, I forget what it was, or it's kind of too long to explain, but they only reimbursed a few weeks of child support.
Just a few weeks.
So I'm like, okay, well, then can I apply for her to pay me child support
Right.
until she ages out?
Yeah.
You'd have to put in a motion. I ended up firing my lawyer because she was supposed to do that, and she
I
didn't.
should have.
So I filed the motion.
Okay.
Once again, gets dragged out. Now this is last year. Now I got a date for, was it March 30th or March 31st, I think
Yeah.
it was. And I go in. This should be straightforward,
Yeah.
right? This is the child. This is my financial affidavit. She should have a financial affidavit. She's 100% in my care with no visitations to the mother.
Right.
All we need to do is send us to family relations on the second floor.
Yeah. Get it stamped.
They'll calculate, use the formula, boom, get it stamped, back to the judge, and signed off.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Right. So you thought.
That's what I thought. So now, but because of 17 years of always getting bad news,
Yeah.
I was prepared for the judge to be like, denied. I was prepared for that.
You've been conditioned to
Yes.
to expect
To
bad
expect.
news.
Because you know how many times I have binders, right? Doing my own research and preparing, affidavits and my arguments, so that where I'm like confident, like, oh, I'm gonna kill it today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna
yeah.
finally, and they just, I feel like I'm getting jumped by the mom The judges, you know, it's just I come out of court like literally like feeling so. So because of that, I'm thinking, okay, here's worst case scenario. They just say denied, and
Yeah.
that's it. This is probably the last time I ever have to go to court. 'Cause
Right.
my child now is 18,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm just trying to get reimbursed. And so we get in front of the judge. The mom's lawyer is trying to get it rescheduled,
Mm-hmm.
and judge comes out, and she says, because of course she used her terminology in courts, because this and that, I'm dismissing this case. I said, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Like, you did not turn in your financial affidavit,
Mm-hmm.
or nor your exhibits in advance. You were supposed to file those before
Yeah.
today. And I said, all due respect, but in the 17 years I've been coming to this court
Mm-hmm.
for a matter like this, I was never required to submit a financial affidavit
Ahead of time.
ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, I have my financial affidavit in hand,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need to submit any additional exhibits. She says, well, nope, you were supposed to file it in advance.
Okay.
So, case dismissed.
Wow.
And a little hammer
Oh
and
man.
walks off.
Yeah.
And I walked out of there once again, defeated, surprised again, because like I was expecting to bad news, but I didn't even get heard.
Right. Right.
I didn't get heard, and it's just another slap to my face. I
Gotcha.
felt defeated. I walked out of court and got in my car, pulled over somewhere, and went out and read on Facebook, which now brings us to this meeting here.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's it's there are no words, man. There are no words to describe what you've been going through for the past 17 years. And also the fact that you feel like you're in a state where you're in a state of helplessness, like you can't find anyone to help you.
Right.
So you fired your lawyer because you felt like she wasn't doing what you needed to have done. Now, the last time you went to court, did you go by yourself or
I
did
did
you?
go by myself
Okay.
because again, and even the lawyer that I fired,
Yeah.
she says, well, just so you know, I did file a motion for the child support.
Yeah.
You can handle that. It's pretty straightforward. You can handle that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to submit some paperwork,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Right.
And I believe that because it was straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
But I
done
guess
it.
I guess the mistake was you had to submit your financial affidavit
Now,
ahead of time.
if that is an official,
Mm-hmm.
policy or rule, I was never informed of that.
Okay.
Meaning, I didn't have to in the past, right? Because in the 17 years, I've gotten laid off, or
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
gotten pay raise,
Yeah.
where I've had to make this simple change in the
Right.
past,
Okay.
right? Where we've adjusted child support many times in the past. So this was kind of like routine, you know,
Routine thing for you.
right?
But if I'm not mistaken, I think from the time that I had to do mine, I think you do have to submit it ahead of time. So
Yeah.
I guess I can't see why the judge would decide to dismiss the case.
Right.
But it is frustrating though,
Yep.
because again, like I said, you've been handed disappointment after disappointment after disappointment every time you go to court. For something that you think is so straightforward. The kid is living with you, you know. But unfortunately, they can't seem to rule in your favor and give you a break, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said earlier, that's what attributes to a lot of guys just offing themselves, just committing suicide, because they feel like no one is really taking the time to listen to them. No one is taking the time to understand what they're going through. And this is why I kind of like created this platform, to give people like you and others an outlet where they can express themselves, because people don't know. They don't know. Like I said, like the good men or the good fathers who want to be involved in their kids' life, people don't know the battle that they have to go through in order to just like get basic rights. to spend time with their kids, basic rights to be, compensated, right? Again, like you said, a lot of people, they know the system inside out. They use it towards their benefit, right? Because, like you said, she's able to file a waiver every time she has to go to court. She doesn't have to pay the fee. But unfortunately, you are not qualified for it.
Right. Right.
You're not, and every time you go, it's what, $150, $180, or what?
$180,
Yeah,
200.
180. Yeah. So every time you go, so for the 17 years, if you made 30 trips, or if you made 20, 50 trips,
Yeah.
that's how much money you have to pay.
Right. Not aside from taking the PTO, right? And
Right.
which
Exactly.
affects if you made overtime that week,
Yeah.
that goes out the
Forget
window.
it. Yeah.
So it's
Right.
yeah, no, it's
It's yeah, the people don't understand that. So I'm glad you're able to share the story, to put the story out there, because again, I'm pretty sure there are people who are in the same boat, going through the same thing, and they're at a point where they don't know what else to do.
right.
They're hanging on by a thread.
Right.
You
No,
know.
we as men, right?
Hmm.
As men, I feel like we are a lot of us. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or I think society in itself raise young men or boys.
Hmm.
You don't cry.
Right.
You don't talk about your emotions. What
No.
are emotions? Now, we are very emotional people,
Yes, we are.
right?
Yeah.
Which is one of our favorite ones is anger.
Yeah.
But we are emotional people, but we are taught that men aren't emotional. Men
Hmm.
don't cry. Men don't, you just get up and do the job,
Hmm.
you know? And my thing is, I was taught that from my mother, which is a woman,
Right.
right? So then you grow up with the same mentality. Then you're trying to find a match, your spouse, a partner,
Hmm.
girlfriend, and she wants a more emotional person.
Yeah.
She wants an emotional, intelligent man.
Hmm.
But a lot of us aren't designed that way. We weren't brought up that way,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
of course, some of us are self-aware enough
Hmm.
where we can adjust and we can learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Therapy is a big help. Like
Absolutely.
I haven't signed up, but it's something that I've been considering. It's
Hmm.
I would have never, I would not have been able to end my life, but
Yeah.
of course,
Right.
those thoughts are there.
No, of course, I can imagine,
And
like especially going through something like that for 17 years, it makes you question yourself,
yeah,
question certain things. But I'm glad you were able to, sustain yourself and refrain from, any of those nonsense. So yeah, I do encourage it if you find the time or the money to afford it, I definitely recommend it. It's
yeah,
going to be useful. So, you know, again, like I said, this story is just so crazy, and I know a lot of people are going through it. Um, I would love to be able to sit with a lawyer and yourself, right? If we can, yeah, just to kind of like get some pointers or give some tips on how to navigate through stuff like that. So if there are any lawyers who happen to be watching this episode, and you know how to navigate the system, we would love to have a conversation with you. Would like to invite you on the show, sit down with Dave and go over his case, and then just figuring out what should have been done or what could have been done differently, for the 17 years, because that was truly an unfair, or that is truly an unfair situation, because you are providing for the kids. You provided for them like the first 3 years after the marriage initially ended, and then the mother came back in their life, and then you had shared custody and so on and so forth. And now your daughter, your youngest one, moved into your house over, like living with you full time now, but you're still paying child support. You know, and then it also speaks, to the character of the other person too, because that person is no longer in your care. You know that,
and that's
you know?
happened multiple times. Like
Hmm.
in the story that I told about DCF,
Right,
right? When they were they were now in my care,
right.
child support was still going over there.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
was getting WIC at the time, I
Yeah,
think, and
yeah.
you would think a phone call like, "Hey,
Hmm.
do you need anything?"
Yeah. I understand, and I know sometimes there are women that are, bitter out there, and I always say, my platform is not about bashing women
Right,
because
right,
that's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm promoting. I'm simply talking about a situation that is unfair, just like your
right,
situation right now.
right,
What I'm saying is sometimes I feel like there are certain women out there who lack the emotional intelligence to separate the two relationships, right? To separate the relationship between the father and the kid and the personal relationship between the father and her. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because so for whatever happened that caused the breakdown of the personal relationship between the mom and dad or whatever it was, she didn't really have anything to do with the relationship between the father and
Right.
and the kid. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's like they're making they're projecting the hurt from the father, from the mom and dad relationship onto the father and son, father and son, or father and daughter relationship.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that you end up dealing with, it's not because it's not really it's not really derived from the relationship with you and your kids. It's really because of what happened in your relationship. They're probably trying to make you pay for it.
Right.
So
Right.
unfortunately, that's what we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so the kids are older. I mean, we've maintained a good relationship. She
Good.
was able to alienate one of the kids, so I have no contact with
Wow.
one of the kids.
Is that your son?
My daughter.
Your daughter?
Yep. She pretty much, we were tight,
Yeah.
and we fallen off a little
Wow.
disagreement, but now she's I'm the monster. But it's weird. It doesn't. Both of my kids, we get along very well.
Okay.
But
Good.
it doesn't match. Like the story doesn't line up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
how is it that I'm so close to
To
two
the other
kids
two,
and
yeah,
then
but
one?
yeah.
But yeah, no. But it's just it goes along with again, I keep going back to the narcissistic behavior, the
Yeah.
triangulation that they
Yeah.
put on in
That was,
alienating the kids. That's a huge thing. I see a lot.
yeah.
I have some friend of mine that they're in similar situations and they get alienated.
Hmm.
The children are conditioned to believe that the father does not have the right
Mm.
to make decisions, and
Yeah.
just a simple overnight stay is not in their right.
Right.
And it's just
So you mentioned earlier that, this is something that you've been battling for 17 years and you've been doing it silently, or you've been doing it in silence. Why do you think that was?
right. Um, like I said a moment ago, is we are conditioned to not talk about our problems,
Hmm.
right? And I say we,
Yeah.
men, young
Yeah.
men. It's another thing is too is I was brought up here. I was brought up. A man is to provide. You don't cry. You should hide. You shouldn't be emotional.
Hmm.
And your home problems stay in your home.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's a recipe
For
for
disaster.
disaster or for worst case scenario
Yeah.
ending your life
Yeah.
because you're carrying all of
A
these
lot.
burdens, right? My wife and I, we great relationship. I love her to death.
Hmm.
We communicate a lot. We talk a lot. We spend, our dinners are we're just not. It's just not, having our meal. It's literally we're just sharing our day, and
Hmm.
we were talking about that recently, and I think I talked about something I haven't talked about ever, even with her,
Hmm.
and it's just like um, I am designed. I feel like I'm hardwired to wake up, and it goes and it correlates with what Eddie said in your previous episode. Is
Hmm.
like I could resonate.
Hmm.
I wake up 5:30 in the morning easily, get ready, go to work, bust your butt in work, come home. For many years, I was a coach
Mm.
for several of the kids. So it's like just go, go,
Go, go.
go,
Yeah.
go, go. You don't get to speak on what is that you want because it's always catered like, is the wife good?
Yeah.
Right? You're not neglecting your wife,
Right.
right?
Right.
The kids, are they needs met?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that I'm being neglected, or it's just I'm just saying that the way I'm neglecting myself
Right.
is what I'm saying,
Right. Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of us are conditioned that way, and we need to change that.
Right.
We need to change it. Not only be there for ourselves, love ourselves,
Hmm.
and attend to our own needs, but also extend a hand. Like one of my sons was on. They were on the phone with one of their homies, one of their friends, and just before they hung up, I heard him say, "All right, bro, I love you."
Wow.
And I, I looked at him, I was like, and my first reaction was like,
Mhm.
"Who are you talking to?" It was like, "Oh, that." He said the name, and it was a guy friend. I was like, "I need to do that, or we need to do that." Like I envied that. Like, why are we not saying "I love you"?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even to our guy friends.
Right.
It's. I just thought that was a different level of like, they are very close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've started saying that now to some, guys, love you or just checking in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need to do that because I think men are like men can hang out.
Yeah.
We go out for drinks and cigar and we chit chat. We talk about sports,
Yeah. Yeah.
boxing,
Yeah.
everything under the sun.
Yeah.
But we never check in on how we're doing emotionally.
Emotionally, yeah,
You know,
mentally, and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think it's important. I
It
think
is
we need to
important.
change that.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like you said, we've been conditioned not to, not to talk about that. But again, that's one of the reasons why I've started this platform, just to give people an opportunity, just give them an outlet to just talk about it and get some stuff off your chest, and knowing that is a judgment-free zone. You know.
Absolutely. No, when you reached out to me, it was like, I think I answered you almost instantly. Like,
Yeah, you did.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like, because
Hmm.
I do want to kind of, get this off my chest, at least for the very last time. I don't want to talk about this no more.
Absolutely.
What I do
Absolutely.
want to talk about for those who want to talk about it is, you know, recognizing some of the behavior, how to avoid it,
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your message to guys who find themselves in the same position, who are in the midst of a court battle right now for custody?
Yep. I mean, first of all, don't ever, ever, ever let anyone, whether it's the baby mama or even if it's a baby daddy,
Hmm.
telling the baby mom like you have rights.
Hmm.
Yes, you will run into hiccups. You will get yourself a lawyer
Hmm.
because that is your best chance
Hmm.
of getting heard, right? Because there's so much what do you call it, legal lingo
Hmm.
that we have no clue how to use in court
Right.
to be heard, to write your arguments.
Yeah.
So my first thing is don't ever, ever, ever believe that you don't have rights.
Hmm.
I knew a dad that wasn't seeing their child, and it was frustrating because I kept trying to help them. Let's go to court. Let's go file the motion. You, you have rights.
Hmm.
You can see your child.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and they found a hard time believing that. They believe that they didn't have these rights, like,
Yeah.
and but they do. So yeah, don't ever let anyone tell you that you don't. You
Yeah.
have absolute rights. Even if it's you don't have full custody of your child, you have the right to see them.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, get second advice is get legal help.
Yeah.
Get legal help. There's I'm sure there's I'm not sure how I never used it, but the legal aid. I don't know.
Oh,
It's
the prepaid legal or something
prepaid
like that.
legal,
Yeah.
something like
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's just at least it's just to get advice,
Yeah.
some
Definitely.
guidance.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Dave, man, listen, I can't thank you enough for your vulnerability, for your flexibility, and being able to unpack this, on 2.0. We appreciate it. We know it wasn't easy, but I'm happy that you've decided to put it out there, and I can only hope that people who are watching would get something out of it, or would at least get the courage to to seek the rights that they own.
Absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me. I
Mhm.
appreciate you
No.
reaching out, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely, man. We should definitely do this again, man. We'll find
Yeah.
another topic for it.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you.
All right. So, guys, I can't say this enough. This was a very impactful episode for me. I definitely learned a lot from my friend here, David. So, if if there's any of you who's going through something like that, who find yourself in this situation, I want to encourage you to fight. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily want to use the word fight, but unfortunately, that's the situation that we find ourselves in. So you definitely have to stand for your rights, stand for the right to see your kids, right? There are fathers out there, and it's unfortunate. It's only the good fathers, the people who really want to spend time with their kids, the people who really want to be involved in their kids' lives. Those are the one who's getting met with like so much difficulties in the court system. The deadbeat dads, they don't care. They're not even showing up at the court. So they are nowhere to be found. But it's only the good ones who are trying to get involved in their kids' life that are facing this, this astronomical amount of red tapes that they got to go through. But I want to encourage you to just hang in there. Don't give up. Continue to fight. Reach out to a lawyer. Don't do it by yourself. If you can't, if you feel like you don't have the capacity to do it, just reach out to a lawyer. Get some help, and then just know that you're not by yourself. Reach out to us. Reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with David. He'll give you some advice on how to navigate through the system. But all I'm saying is you don't have to do this alone. We are creating this platform where men can come together and help one another and help each other out because we know it's not easy out there. And as always, if you find yourself going through a divorce, again, you're not alone. Find yourself some help, seek some help, talk to a counselor or a therapist. There's nothing wrong with speaking to a therapist. So just get the help that you need in order for you to overcome this situation. And as always, I don't promote divorce, but I do know there are certain situations where it is necessary. But if you can find a way to work it out, just work it out and prevent all of this custody issues that can potentially happen on the back end. Don't forget, live every day as if it is your last day, because one day it will be. I'm JR. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.